Kang Minho stood at the center of the great assembly hall, his dark suit a sharp contrast against the colorful robes and strange forms of alien delegates surrounding him. The Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Prime Station had seen many historic moments, but none quite like this one. The human ambassador looked calm as he placed his hands on the speaking podium. Behind him, Park Sola sat straight in her military uniform, her face showing nothing. The other human delegates remained silent, watching the sea of alien faces that stared back at them. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Minho began, his voice clear and steady. I come before you today to deliver humanity's final message to this assembly. A ripple of confusion moved through the chamber. The Vrex delegate, a tall creature with blue-scaled skin, leaned forward in his seat. The small, furry Kitani representatives whispered among themselves. Even the massive rock-like beings from Theron shifted uncomfortably. Final message? Asked Council Speaker Valdris, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence. Ambassador Kang, surely. You mean your quarterly report? Minho shook his head slowly. No, Speaker Valdris. After careful consideration, humanity has decided to withdraw from all galactic affairs. We will no longer participate in council sessions, trade agreements, or joint military operations. We are, as of today, stepping back from our role in galactic civilization. The silence that followed was complete. Not even the usual hum of translation devices could be heard. Park Sola noticed how some aliens had stopped breathing entirely, while others began breathing much faster. This is impossible, declared the Vrex delegate, rising from his seat. Humans cannot simply leave. Your species manages 40% of all trade routes. Your military protects 60 systems. Your medical facilities treat millions of our people every year. Minho nodded politely. Yes, and we will be closing all of those operations in an orderly fashion over the next 6 months. We will ensure that critical services continue until proper transitions can be arranged. But why? The question came from the Kitani section, their translator making their squeaks sound like children asking for their parents. We are tired, Minho said simply. For 200 years, humanity has mediated your conflicts, protected your shipping lanes, provided medical aid, and maintained the infrastructure that keeps this galaxy functioning. We have done this willingly, believing it was the right thing to do. He paused, looking around the chamber. But we have realized that our help has not made the galaxy more peaceful. It has not made your species more cooperative. It has simply made you dependent on us to solve problems you should solve yourselves. The Theron delegate spoke, his voice like grinding stone. You cannot abandon your responsibilities. Billions depend on human services. And that, Park Sola said, speaking for the first time, is exactly the problem. Billions should not depend on one species to hold their civilization together. Minho pulled out a datapad and began reading. As of today, we are beginning the shutdown of the following. The Human Medical Network, serving 412 worlds. The Terran Trade Authority, managing shipping for 637 star systems. The Human Peacekeeping Force, currently maintaining stability in 43 conflict zones. With each item he listed, the alien delegates grew more agitated. Some began shouting questions or demands. Others sat in stunned silence. The Vrex delegate was now standing, his scales flushed deep purple with anger or fear. The Sol system defense grid will remain active, Minho continued, his voice somehow carrying over the growing noise. Earth's borders will be respected and we will defend ourselves if necessary. But we will not venture beyond our system for any reason. This is madness, shouted someone from the back. The galaxy will fall apart without human involvement. Minho looked in that direction. Perhaps, or perhaps you will learn to work together without us. Either way, it is no longer our concern. Speaker Valdris was frantically pressing buttons on her console, trying to restore order. Ambassador Kang, surely we can discuss terms. What would humanity require to reconsider this decision? Nothing, Park Sola answered. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat or an ultimatum. This is simply what we are doing. The chamber, erupted into chaos. Aliens shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate action. Others begged the humans to reconsider. A few sat quietly, already calculating what this would mean for their homeworlds. Through it all, the human delegation remained calm. They gathered their few belongings with quiet efficiency. Minho closed his datapad and tucked it into his jacket pocket. Park Sola stood and straightened her uniform. "Wait," Speaker Valdris called out as the humans moved toward the exit. "When will you return? Surely this is temporary." Minho paused at the chamber door. "Speaker Valdris, in human history we have a saying, don't bite the hand that feeds you. For 2 centuries this galaxy has bitten the hand that fed it. Now that hand is being withdrawn. But without humanity we cannot maintain what we have built," pleaded the Kitani translator. "Then perhaps," Park Sola said quietly, "you should not have built something you could not maintain yourselves." The human delegation walked out of the chamber, their footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Behind them, hundreds of alien representatives stared at the closing doors, finally beginning to understand what they had just witnessed. In the corridor outside, Minho activated his communication device. "All human personnel, begin implementation of Withdrawal Protocol 7. All non-essential operations are to cease within 48 hours. Essential services will continue for 6 months to allow for transition." As the humans walked toward their ships, Park Sola glanced back at the chamber doors. Even through the thick walls, they could hear the sounds of argument and panic beginning to build. "Do you think they understand?" she asked. Minho considered the question as they reached their transport. "Not yet, but they will. When the lights start going out, when the medical supplies stop coming, when the trade ships stop moving, they will understand exactly what humanity did for this galaxy. And when they do, by then," Minho said, stepping into the transport, "it will be too late. We will be gone, and they will have to learn to survive without us." The human delegation left Nexus Prime Station that day, but their departure sent shock waves through every corner of the galaxy. For the first time in 200 years, the great powers of space would have to face their problems alone. The age of human involvement in galactic affairs was ending, not with war or threats, but with a quiet goodbye that terrified civilizations across the stars. Li Jiwan stood on the bridge of the massive transport ship Terra's Promise, watching the last shuttle dock with their vessel. Below them, the human colony on Kepler 442b was now empty. 200,000 people had called this world home for 60 years. Now they were all aboard the fleet heading back to Earth. "That's the last one, Captain," reported her communications officer. "All civilians are aboard." Colony Commander Kim Yuna confirmed 0 human presence remaining on the surface. Jiwan nodded, her eyes still focused on the planet below. Green forests and blue oceans made it look almost like Earth. It had been a good home for these people, but home was calling them back now. "What about the infrastructure?" she asked. "Chief Engineer Choi Do-hyun says everything is shut down cleanly," came the reply. "Power plants are offline, but the buildings remain intact. Water systems are disconnected. All human technology has been removed or disabled." Through the view screen, Jiwan could see other ships in their evacuation fleet. Dozens of massive transports carried the colonists. Cargo vessels held everything they could take with them. Smaller ships buzzed between the larger ones like busy insects. Her wrist communicator buzzed. "Captain Lee, this is Commander Shin Tae-hyun from the logistics ship. We have a problem." "Go ahead, Commander." 3 alien vessels just dropped out of hyperspace. They're requesting permission to land on the colony world. They say they have urgent business with the colonial government. Jiwan frowned. "Tell them the colonial government no longer exists. All humans have left this system." A pause. "I did, Captain. They're asking to speak with whoever is in charge of the evacuation. They seem very upset about something." "Put them through to me." Her main screen flickered, showing 3 alien faces. She recognized the species immediately. Orion traders known for their business sense and usually calm demeanor. Today they looked anything but calm. "Captain, I am Merchant Prime Kelvex," said the lead alien, his translator making his voice sound high and worried. "You cannot leave this system. Our entire trade network depends on your colony's processing facilities. I'm sorry, Merchant Prime, but we are leaving. The facilities are being shut down. But our shipping contracts, another alien interrupted. Kepler Station processes 60% of all goods moving through this sector. Without it, our trade routes become impossible to maintain. Jiwan felt a small pang of sympathy, but her orders were clear. That is unfortunate, but it is no longer humanity's concern. Perhaps you can make arrangements with other species to maintain the facilities. The third alien leaned forward. Other species do not have the technology to run these systems. Only humans understand the quantum processing networks you built here. Then perhaps you should have learned how they worked while we were running them for you. G1 replied simply. The lead merchant's face changed color, a sign of extreme distress in his species. Captain, please, be reasonable. Millions of beings, across dozens of worlds, depend on the trade that flows through this system. Without Kepler Station, entire colonies will run out of food and medicine. For a moment, Jiwan considered their words. She thought about the millions of alien families who might suffer. But then she remembered her briefing from Earth Command. This was exactly why humanity was leaving. They had become responsible for everyone else's problems. Merchant Prime, she said gently, your species has been trading across the galaxy for thousands of years. Humans have only been involved for 2 centuries. Somehow you managed before we arrived. I'm sure you can manage again after we leave. But the scale is different now, Kelvex protested. The volume of trade, the complexity of the systems, it all grew because humans made it possible. We cannot simply go back to old methods. That sounds like a problem you need to solve, Jiwan said. I wish you luck. She cut the communication and turned to her navigator. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump to rendezvous point 7. As the fleet began to move away from Kepler 442b, Jiwan's communications officer spoke up. Captain, we're receiving similar reports from evacuation fleets across the sector. Alien species are trying to convince human colonies to stay. Some are offering significant compensation. What are the colony commanders saying? They're all following withdrawal protocols. No exceptions, no negotiations. Jiwan nodded with satisfaction. That was good. It meant her fellow officers understood the importance of what they were doing. Her tactical officer looked up from his console. Captain, you should see this. Long-range sensors are picking up increased military activity throughout the sector. Looks like several species are mobilizing their fleets. Against us? Jiwan asked, suddenly alert. No, ma'am. Against each other. Seems like old territorial disputes are heating up now that human peacekeeping forces are pulling out. Jiwan walked to the tactical display and studied the patterns of ship movements her sensors were detecting. Red dots showed military vessels moving toward borders that had been peaceful for decades. Yellow markers indicated cargo ships changing their routes, avoiding areas that were no longer protected by human patrols. Look at this, her tactical officer continued. The Vrex Confederation and the Stellar Union both have fleets heading toward the neutral zone. That's been human-protected space for 40 years. And here, added the navigator, pointing to another area of the display, the mining worlds in the Outer Rim are requesting emergency protection. Pirates are already moving into areas where human patrol ships used to operate. Jiwan studied the display for a long moment. In just 2 weeks since the withdrawal began, the galaxy was already becoming less stable. Trade routes were being abandoned. Old enemies were facing each other across borders without human peacekeepers to keep them apart. Pirates and raiders were emerging from hiding places they had avoided for decades. Captain, her communications officer said quietly, I'm receiving a priority message from Earth Command. All evacuation fleets are to increase speed. Intelligence reports suggest several alien governments are considering military action to force humans to reverse the withdrawal. Military action against Earth? Jiwan asked. Unknown. But fleet movements suggest some species are desperate enough to try anything. Jiwan looked once more at Kepler 442b shrinking behind them. She thought about the alien merchants who had pleaded with her. and all the other aliens across the galaxy who were just beginning to understand what human withdrawal really meant. All ships, she announced over the fleet communications. Maximum speed to Earth, we're going home. As the human evacuation fleet jumped to hyperspace, they left behind a world that had been a center of galactic trade and commerce. Within hours, the first cargo ships began arriving, expecting to find the processing facilities that had made interstellar trade possible. Instead, they found empty buildings and silent machines. The galaxy was learning its first lesson about human absence. The lesson was simple but harsh. When humans built something, only humans really knew how to make it work. On dozens of worlds in hundreds of star systems, similar scenes were playing out. Human colonies shutting down, human-built infrastructure going silent, human services disappearing. Each departure was quiet and orderly, but the combined effect was like removing the foundation stones from a great building. And across the galaxy, alien civilizations were beginning to panic as they realized just how much of their modern life depended on humans who were no longer there to help. Bei Sunwoo stared at the wall of screens in Earth's Galactic Monitoring Center, each one showing a different part of the galaxy that was falling apart. 3 months had passed since humanity announced its withdrawal, and the results were worse than even the most pessimistic predictions. "Show me the Vrex Union border situation again," he said to his assistant, Minji. The main screen focused on a region of space that had been peaceful for 50 years. Now it was filled with warships, from both sides, facing each other across a line that human peacekeepers had once maintained. "Fighting started yesterday," Minji reported. 3 battles so far. Both sides are claiming the other attacked first. Casualties are mounting. Sunwoo shook his head. "They managed to avoid war for half a century while we kept them separated. Now 3 months after we leave, they're shooting at each other again." "It gets worse," said Yu Kyung-hwan, another analyst. "The Katani Trade Federation has completely collapsed. Without human-managed shipping networks, they can't get goods between their colony worlds. 2 of their planets are facing famine." Han Jun looked up from her communication station. "I'm still getting about 100 requests per day from alien governments. They want to negotiate humanity's return. Some are offering us entire star systems if we'll just restart our medical networks." "What are you telling them?" Sunwoo asked. "The same thing I've been telling them for 3 months. Humanity is not interested in negotiating. Our withdrawal is final." Sunwoo walked to another screen showing economic data. The numbers were staggering. Galactic trade had dropped by 60%. Medical emergencies were going untreated on hundreds of worlds. Crime rates had increased dramatically in systems that no longer had human police support. "Look at this. Report from the Outer Rim," Kyung-hwan said, pulling up new data. "The Thornax plague has broken out again on 3 worlds. Without human medical teams, they don't have the expertise to contain it." "How bad?" Sunwoo asked. "Bad. The Thornax government estimates they'll lose 40% of their population within 6 months if they can't get help." June's communication board lit up with incoming signals. "Another emergency session request from the Galactic Council," she announced. "That's the 15th one this week. They're begging us to send a representative." Response? Same as always. Humanity no longer participates in galactic affairs. Sunwoo felt a weight in his chest as he looked at all the suffering displayed on his screens. But he also remembered why humanity had made this choice. For 200 years they had solved everyone else's problems, and in all that time, the galaxy had never learned to solve problems on its own. "Sir," Minji called out, her voice urgent, "you need to see this. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet approaching the Sol system." All activity in the monitoring center stopped. Sunwoo rushed to the tactical display, where hundreds of red dots were moving toward Earth. "Who are they?" he demanded. "Mixed fleet," reported the tactical officer. "Ships from at least 12 different species. Looks like they formed some kind of alliance." Kyung-hwan was already analyzing the fleet composition. 300 ships total. That's enough firepower to threaten most worlds, but not Earth. Sunwoo finished. Everyone in the room knew about Earth's defenses. The Sol system defense grid was the most powerful military network humanity had ever built. June's board erupted with incoming communications. They're hailing us. The fleet commander wants to speak with Earth's government. Put it through to the main screen. The display showed a conference room filled with alien faces. Sunwoo recognized most of the species: Vrex, Kitani, Orion, Stellar, Union representatives, and others. They all looked desperate. "People of Earth," said the lead figure, a tall Vrex military commander. "I am Fleet Admiral Corvex, speaking for the United Species Emergency Coalition. We have come to discuss humanity's return to galactic civilization." "There is nothing to discuss," Sunwoo replied calmly. "Humanity's withdrawal is final." "You do not understand," interrupted a Kitani representative, her translator making her voice sound like a crying child. "Our civilizations are collapsing. Without your help, billions are dying. You must help us." "We must do nothing," Sunwoo said firmly. "For 2 centuries, humanity helped you solve your problems. In all that time, did you learn to solve them yourselves? Did you build backup systems? Did you train your people to maintain what we built for you?" The aliens looked uncomfortable. They knew the answer. "We trusted that you would always be there," Admiral Corvex said. "We built our societies around your support." "And that," Sunwoo replied, "was your mistake. You made yourselves dependent on us instead of learning to be independent." A new voice spoke from the alien group, an elderly Orion diplomat. "Dr. Bay, we know we made errors. We are willing to learn. But please do not let billions die while we figure out what we should have learned decades ago." For a moment, Sunwoo felt his resolve waver. The suffering was real. The deaths were real. But then he thought about what would happen if humanity returned. The galaxy would become dependent on them again. Nothing would really change. "You have 300 ships outside our system," he said. "That represents military power from 12 different species. If you can work together to build a fleet, you can work together to solve your problems." "But we need human expertise," protested a Stellar Union captain. "Your technology, your medical knowledge, your administrative systems, we don't understand them well enough to maintain them alone." "Then you shouldn't have built your civilizations around technology you didn't understand," June said, speaking for the first time. The aliens fell silent. They knew she was right, but that knowledge didn't help their dying populations. Admiral Corvex leaned forward. "What if we threaten military action? What if we demand your return?" Sunwoo almost smiled. "Admiral, you have 300 ships. Earth's defense grid has the firepower to destroy fleets 10 times that size. But more importantly, attacking us would prove exactly why we were right to leave." The alien commanders looked at each other uncertainly. They had hoped their show of unity would convince humanity to return. Instead, it seemed to confirm humanity's decision to withdraw. "Please," the Kitani representative said, her voice breaking through the translator. "At least send medical aid to the plague worlds. 40 million people will die." Sunwoo closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his voice was gentle but firm. "The Thornax plague can be treated with basic medical techniques that your species knew before humans arrived. The treatment is not complicated, but it requires careful coordination between your medical teams." "We don't remember how," she whispered. "Then you had better learn quickly," Sunwoo said. "Because humanity is not coming back." The communication ended, leaving the monitoring center in silence. Outside Earth's atmosphere, 300 alien warships waited for a response that would never come. And across the galaxy, civilizations continued to crumble as they learned, the hardest lesson of all, that depending on someone else's strength made you weak. Humanity had given the galaxy 200 years of help. Now the galaxy would learn whether it could survive without them. Naseok Jin walked through the empty corridors of what used to be humanity's largest orbital military base. 6 months had passed since the withdrawal began, and now even their farthest outposts were coming home. The base would be destroyed tomorrow. They couldn't risk leaving their military technology behind. "Final systems check complete, Admiral," reported CO Huna, his strategic planning officer. "All classified materials have been removed or destroyed. The base will self-destruct on schedule." Seokjin nodded, but his attention was focused on the intelligence reports filling his datapad. The galaxy was in worse shape than anyone had predicted. Lim Hana, give me your analysis of the current situation, he said to the researcher walking beside him. Hana consulted her tablet. 23 interstellar governments have completely collapsed in the past 6 months. 47 more are experiencing severe internal problems. The Galactic Council has stopped meeting because they can't maintain basic order during sessions. They reached the base's main observation deck, where a massive window showed the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, civilizations that had thrived for centuries were falling apart. What about the major powers? Seokjin asked. The Vrex Confederation is fighting a 3-way civil war, Hana continued. Without human peacekeepers to mediate their internal disputes, old tribal conflicts have resurged. The Stellar Union has broken into 6 separate nations. The Orion Empire is facing rebellion on 30% of their worlds. Wu Jinsu, a former peacekeeper who now trained Earth's defense forces, joined their conversation. Sir, I served in Orion space for 10 years. Their empire was always held together by human diplomatic intervention. We mediated between their rival noble houses, managed their trade disputes, even helped them write their modern constitution. And now? Seokjin asked. Now they're remembering why they needed our help in the first place. Ancient family feuds, resource conflicts, territorial disputes, all the problems that human mediation kept under control. Hyuna pulled up a holographic display showing galactic trade routes. Red lines indicated routes that had closed. Yellow showed routes operating at reduced capacity. Green marked routes still functioning normally. There wasn't much green. Trade volume is down 78% from pre-withdrawal levels, she reported. Most cargo ships are afraid to travel without human escort protection. Piracy has increased by 400%. Seokjin studied the display with growing amazement. He had known humans played an important role in galactic affairs, but seeing the collapse happen in real time was shocking. Show me the medical situation, he said. The display changed to show health statistics across known space. The numbers were horrifying. Disease outbreaks were spreading unchecked. Medical supply shortages affected hundreds of worlds. Death rates had increased dramatically on planets that had depended on human medical support. The Kitani plague situation? He asked. 53 million dead so far, Hana replied quietly. Their medical system completely failed. They're literally dying of diseases they could easily treat if they still had access to human-trained doctors or human-manufactured medicines. And they can't manufacture the medicines themselves? They never learned how. Human companies handled all pharmaceutical production for their worlds. When we left, we took our factories and our knowledge with us. Seokjin walked to another section of the display, this one showing military conflicts. The map was covered with red markers indicating active fighting. 14 major wars currently in progress, Wu Jinsu reported. These are conflicts that human peacekeeping forces had successfully contained for decades. Now, without us there to maintain ceasefires and patrol neutral zones, old enemies are settling scores. Any of these conflicts threaten Earth? Seokjin asked. No, sir. Most of the fighting species barely have the resources to fight each other, let alone mount an expedition to the Sol system. The few that might have that capability are too busy dealing with their own internal problems. Hyuna activated another display. This might interest you, Admiral. Intelligence reports suggest that several species are trying to reverse engineer abandoned human technology. With what success? Very little. We built most of our systems using principles that require human-level mathematics and engineering knowledge. Most alien species never developed the theoretical foundation needed to understand how our technology actually works. Hana added, they can push buttons and follow procedures we taught them, but they don't understand the science behind what they're doing. It's like trying to maintain a computer when you don't understand electricity. A communication alert sounded. Seokjin activated his personal communicator to find a message from Earth's president. Admiral Na, please report to Earth immediately. We've received something that requires your attention. The trip back to Earth took 3 days. When Seokjin arrived at the presidential complex, he found Young Somin looking tired and troubled. "Admiral, we've received a formal communication from what remains of the Galactic Council," she said without preamble. "They're offering humanity complete control of galactic affairs if we agree to return." Seokjin blinked in surprise. Complete control? Military authority over all space. Economic control of all trade networks. Authority to reorganize governments as we see fit. They're essentially offering to make humanity the ruling species of the galaxy. And our response? President Young handed him a datapad. "I wanted your military assessment first. Could we actually control the galaxy if we wanted to?" Seokjin read through the offer carefully. It was incredible. The alien species were so desperate that they were willing to give up their independence entirely. "Militarily, yes," he said finally. "Human technology is so far advanced beyond most species that we could enforce our will across known space. Our defense networks, our ships, our weapons, we're probably 2 centuries ahead of the next most advanced civilization. But controlling the galaxy would require us to become responsible for every problem, every conflict, every need of every species in known space. We'd have to govern them like children because they've proven they can't govern themselves." President Young nodded. "That's exactly what I was thinking. If we accept this offer, we'd be right back where we started, except with even more responsibility and even more dependence on our help." "What are you going to tell them?" Young walked to her office window, looking out at the city below. "I'm going to tell them no. Humanity didn't withdraw from galactic affairs so we could become galactic rulers. We withdrew because we wanted aliens to learn independence, not dependence, even if it means more civilizations will collapse. Admiral, how many human lives were lost in the past 200 years maintaining galactic peace? How many of our people died fighting other species' wars, treating other species' diseases, solving other species' problems?" Seokjin considered the question. The numbers were staggering. Millions of humans had died serving the galaxy. "The galaxy must learn to save itself," Jung continued, "or it doesn't deserve to be saved. We've given them 2 centuries of help. Now they need to prove they can survive without us." As Seokjin left the presidential complex, he thought about the alien fleet that had pleaded with Earth months ago. They were probably still out there somewhere, watching their civilizations crumble and wondering why humanity wouldn't save them. The answer was simple but harsh, because saving them would never teach them to save themselves. Hyung So-min stood at the window of her office watching Earth's sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and red. 1 full year had passed since humanity's withdrawal from galactic affairs. The reports on her desk told a story of a galaxy transformed, some might say devastated, by their absence. Kwon Min-soo, her defense commander, entered the office carrying the latest intelligence summaries. His face showed the weight of the information he brought. "Madam President, we have the annual assessment you requested," he said, settling into a chair across from her desk. "How bad is it?" Young asked, though she suspected she already knew. "Bad, but also..." He paused, searching for the right words. "Surprising. The galaxy is changing in ways we didn't expect." Young returned to her desk and activated the holographic display. The familiar map of known space appeared, but it looked very different from the galaxy humanity had left behind. "Show me the major changes," she said. The display shifted to highlight areas of concern. Red zones marked regions of active conflict. Yellow showed areas of instability. Green represented stable regions. 41 governments have completely collapsed, Min-soo reported, but 17 new ones have formed to replace them. Some of these new governments are actually more stable than what came before. Jung frowned. "How is that possible?" Ahn Ji-hoon, her chief scientist, joined the conversation from his seat near the wall screens. "It seems that removing human support forced some species to develop their own solutions. The survivors are often stronger than their predecessors." "Give me examples," Jung said. "The Kitani Federation collapsed completely," Min-soo explained. "But 3 new Kitani nations emerged from the wreckage. They've learned to manufacture their own medicines and manage their own trade networks. Their new governments are smaller, but more efficient." Cho Yoon-ji, the cultural preservation officer, added, The surviving Kitani have rediscovered traditional knowledge their ancestors used before human contact. Ancient medical techniques, old trade methods, forgotten diplomatic practices. In some ways, they're more self-reliant now than they've been in centuries. Jung studied the display more closely. What about the major powers? The Vrex Confederation is gone, Minsu said. But two of its successor states have formed a defensive alliance. They've stopped fighting each other and started working together. Without human mediators, they were forced to learn direct negotiation. The Stellar Union split into 6 nations as we expected, but 4 of those nations have formed a loose cooperative agreement. They're sharing resources and coordinating their defense. Again, cooperation born from necessity rather than human intervention. Jung walked around the holographic display, studying the patterns of change. Despite the devastation, she could see signs of something new emerging. What about the crisis situations we were most worried about? She asked. The Thornax plague finally ended, Ji-hoon reported. They lost 60 million people, but the survivors developed their own treatment methods. They also created new medical protocols to prevent future outbreaks. The piracy problem? Several species have formed joint patrol fleets, Minsu said. Without human protection, they had to learn to protect themselves. Some of these new alliances are actually more effective than our old patrol system. Jung activated a communication panel. Are we still receiving requests for assistance? Yes, replied her communications director through the intercom. But the nature of the request has changed. A year ago, aliens wanted us to solve their problems. Now they're asking for advice or offering to trade for specific technologies. They're trying to help themselves rather than asking us to do everything. Any requests for our return to galactic affairs? Very few. Most species seem to have accepted that we're not coming back. Jung considered this information carefully. The withdrawal had caused enormous suffering, but it had also forced positive changes that might never have happened with continued human intervention. Commander Kwan, what's our defensive posture? She asked. All human space remains secure. The Sol system defenses have been tested twice by alien probe attempts, but no serious threats have materialized. Most species are too busy with their own problems to threaten us. Any signs of organized opposition to humanity? No, ma'am. If anything, the species that survived the transition seem to respect our decision. They understand why we left. Jung walked to another display showing communication intercepts from across the galaxy. The alien conversations painted a picture of civilizations learning hard lessons about independence and cooperation. There's something else you should know, Yoonji said quietly. We've been monitoring alien cultural developments. Several species are creating new philosophies and belief systems based on their experience surviving without human help. Some view the withdrawal as a necessary growing period. They're grateful we left? Jung asked, surprised. Some are. They see it as the push they needed to become truly independent adults rather than dependent children. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Jung activated the communication system to find an image of multiple alien faces, representatives, from 12 different species. President Jung, said the lead figure, whom she recognized as a new Kitani leader. We represent the Galactic Recovery Council, formed from species that survived the transition period after your withdrawal. What can I do for you? Jung asked carefully. We wish to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity, the Kitani continued, not as dependents seeking help, but as equals seeking cooperation. Jung felt a flicker of interest. What kind of cooperation? A Vrex representative spoke next. We have learned to solve our own problems, but we would welcome the opportunity to trade knowledge and resources with humanity. We offer partnership, not dependence. We have developed new technologies during our isolation, added an Orion delegate. We would be honored to share them with the species that taught us the value of independence. Jung looked at her advisors. This was something they had not expected, former dependents returning as potential equals. What assurances can you give? That you won't become dependent on us again? She asked. We have created the independence protocols, the Kitani leader replied. No species in our council can accept help that they cannot eventually provide for themselves. We've learned the lesson you taught us. Jung felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. For the first time in a year, she allowed herself to hope that humanity's painful decision had been the right one. I will consider your proposal, she said. But any relationship between humanity and the galactic community will be based on equality and mutual respect, not on human responsibility for galactic welfare. We understand and accept these terms, the Alien Council replied in unison. After the communication ended, Jung sat in silence for a long moment. Outside her window, night was falling over Earth, but for the first time in a year she felt optimistic about the future. So what do you think, Madam President? Minsu asked. Do we engage with them? Jung looked at the galactic display one more time. Where once there had been a web of human-maintained dependencies, she now saw the beginning of true interspecies cooperation based on mutual strength rather than one-sided assistance. We'll consider it, she said finally. But this time, if we engage with the galaxy, it will be as partners, not as guardians. The stars held their breath as humanity contemplated returning to galactic affairs, not as the species that solved everyone's problems, but as one voice among many in a galaxy that had finally learned to speak for itself. The age of human guardianship was over. The age of galactic cooperation, true cooperation between equals, was perhaps about to begin.